Yes, start recording. Okay, so we're gonna, start. Okay, live starts already. We're gonna see a game between Yassin Sentissi and Yasser Hashkholti. A game played in the OPC tournament in Ramadan. I don't know, the fifth round or the fourth round, probably the sixth round. But the important is that we're gonna see the game. So Yassin Sentissi played with white and Yasser Hashkholti played with black pieces. I won't even mention the score at this point. I will just start analyzing. So let's see if everything is set up correctly. I look nice. The chessboard is set up. The ad is very clear. Okay, let's start. So I would even make this off. TC started with e4. He plays already as usual e4. He doesn't opt for d4 or c4. Even sometimes he can really play that on a unusual way, exceptional ways. Um, so he played e4, c5. Yasser Hashkholti always plays the Sicilian against e4. I never saw him play something else. Probably online chess he plays the f5, but he played in this game particularly c5 against the assistant TC. So c5, all this up to this point is just plain theory. Knight to f3, g6. G6 he simply aims for the dragon or the hyper accelerated dragon. He means to undermine the center by d4. If white plays d4, I would break his center by c takes, knight takes, and for example f5 at some points, or just f6. It depends on what white's gonna choose and what black gonna choose. So white opted here for c3. He wants really to support the d4 push by c3 pawn. So for example, if black takes on d4, another pawn, which is the c3 pawn, will take on d4. So white will have e4, d4 pawn center, which is usually stronger in such positions. Black didn't really wait. He just played d5 immediately. He wants to take something for himself, and he waits for white to choose himself. Either he takes on d5 or he pushes in the center. And usually in such structures, you must opt for space advantage. So you must simply play e5 in order to gain advantage, space advantage, and increase the pressure against the black pieces. Especially in such structures when you have f7, g6, a7 pawn structure, because at some points you will have to push h4, h5. And the center controlled and secured by white pieces, h4, h5 is very justified. So he played e5, black played knight to c6, simple development move, aiming at putting some pressure on the e5 pawn and completing, developments. d4, standard plan, theoretical plan, bishop g7. Probably this wasn't really cool at the very beginning. Instead of developing the bishop to g7, black had something else. The analysis shows me I will add more depth. 3 moves for 32. Okay, this sounds good. So in this position, black had really one small option to take on d4. C takes, and the center won't really be that strong for white pieces because you already have the f6 push, bishop g4, then to block everything by e6, and then f6 to undermine this pawn structure and to take these d4, e5 pawns down. But anyways, he played bishop g7. Bishop b5 move was simply aiming at making some pawn weaknesses on c6 and denying black the counterplay on the d4 pawn center. If he simply have the option to take on d4, c takes, knight takes, probably knight takes, queen takes, then black will be very happy. He will still have 2 pawns in the center, d5 and e6. But he wants white pieces to deny that by bishop to b5. Queen to b6, I will turn this off. So queen to b6, the only move, I would say necessary move in this position is to play queen to b6 to ask the bishop his intentions. Either you're gonna exchange yourself on c6 or retreat to a4 or to e2 or whatever it is. If you retreat to d3, black will win a tempo by pushing c4. That will be a mistake. Big blunder, a big mistake. But white, fortunately, he took on c6. Black took with the b pawn. This wasn't, well, I would say queen takes on c6 instead of b takes on c6 because it's justified. You know, white playing bishop to b5 and taking on c6. I mean, why you played queen to b6 if you're gonna take with the b pawn, not with the queen? Not wasting a tempo on queen takes on c6 is pure waste of time itself. You should have simply played queen takes on c6 and remain with the solid pawn structure. But now with the b takes, b file open, yes, but there is no immediate counterplay on the b file, and you just have a a7 weakness. On the long term, that will be weak, dead, dead lost. So b takes. This was very bad for black piece. It's not a blunder, but just a small inaccuracy. Castle, although probably white even had bishop, not bishop, but simply had the queen e2 or knight to a3, just developing something before castling because black is not threatening to attack you somehow. Just continue development and everything will be easy for you to play with. So castle, bishop g4. I would say in this position, white have to play h3 in order to stop the pin and to let the knight move some, another square, and let the queen on d1 have a free movement to not be overloaded to protect the f3 knight and to protect everything else. So bishop g4, knight b to d2. At this position, I would say black is not really bad. You just have to exchange more pieces and exploit the fact that white have not that strong pawn center, because at this point I can simply undermine it with c takes, and f6, and white will be not that strong and not that good. And generally, if you deny him the pawn structure, if you deny him the center, you deny him everything. If he doesn't have a nice center, black will attack you at every single moment. So this is the first big mistake. I won't even mention that this is an accuracy. This is a mistake. To push c4 to release the tension from the center, and you still not fully developed. I would say you're not fully developed, so you'll push c4. But in this position, you must take on d4. C takes, and then knight to h6, or push e6 and knight to e7, and then short castle. But pushing c4, the black piece is lacking simply activity. The pawns on c3, d4, e5 won't be attacked anyway, and the bishop on g7 is simply dead lost. So you have to exchange that bishop in order to simplify the position and not be bad in the overall position. So c4, b3, white simply sizes the initiative, wants to undermine the center or the c pawn. Bishop h6. This position is simply not that cool for black. And from the very beginning, white is doing clearly better. After 10 moves, white is happy about this position. He could play any move here and he still wins. On the longer term, white is winning here with 2+2 advantage. White is winning. Psychologically, you could say that black is playing, with no fear, but white here is simply quite solid. Doesn't have any weaknesses. I would say probably c3, but it's not exploitable. c3 can't be attacked at this point. Only if you have a b file open, which you wanted to do in the first place, but at this position, white will open the b file and it will benefit him. So b takes, bishop takes. This was the intermediate move that cost black a pawn. c5. Well, if you didn't saw the c5, then why you wanted to take on d2? After this move, black is simply a pawn down. Queen a6, bishop takes. Although there's no problem in taking with the queen. Probably you would say to me that he will take on f3 with his bishop and some pawn weaknesses will be created, but bishop takes on d2 is good. e6, exchange first the knight on f3, then play e6. The bishop now is not doing that good. Probably you would say to me that you're going to use the bishop to put it on e4, or sometimes even bishop to c4, but that's not quite good. h3, bishop to f5, bishop g5. Black here is very bad. I mean, you should castle as soon as possible, but bishop g5 is aiming at simply blocking the castle by bishop to f6. And if you take on f6, I will take with my pawn, and the dark square is going to be very weak. And the simple plan for white pieces will be to penetrate to the queen h6. I mean, the whole plan will be based on the penetration on the h6 square if you allow that. h6, bishop to f6, rook h7. In this position, if I was black, I will feel terribly bad. If I have an option to castle long, probably I would do it, but it's very risky. The b file is already open, everything is open. The center is closed, which means strategically you must remain in the center as soon as possible with your king. But here, your pieces are misplaced. There is no coordination between the rooks, no coordination between the knights and the queen, and your bishop is not really doing much. He's just placed on f5 for no purpose. There's no threat, there's no pawn weaknesses on the light squares, nothing is there. So you're simply dead lost. So in this position, I would definitely, take into consideration that black is doing terribly bad. It depends on white, his plans, what he's aiming for, and let's continue. So queen to b3. The smallest idea here was to stop rook b8 and to stop the penetration on the b file, and blocking black from doubling his own rook and queen. g5, I don't know, he wanted to attack with g4, h5, g4, but you're already behind in development and you lack the pieces to start any amount of attack. So just pushing pawns not supported won't allow you to do something. Rook to d1, I mean, what's the purpose for this move? Rook a b1 was the best. Even if he plays the next move, which is queen to c8, he will penetrate to queen to b7. Okay, so g4, this is what the second in accuracy, I would say even in precision. Small mistake, attacking, h takes, bishop takes, rook a to b1, that's the move that should be played, because now the bishop on a5 does not control the square b1. So you have the option now to penetrate on the b file. This wasn't actually very good. I mean, right now, you should protect the penetration square. The b1 should be protected by the black pieces. So bishop a5, go back, win a tempo, and then look for something else. Bishop takes, g takes, queen to c8, queen to b7, and white already knows that he is a pawn up, and this position is very good for him. If he exchanges everything, he'll be happy. He'll be very happy. Queen to b7, h5, creating something. Queen takes, rook takes, bishop h4, just stopping the push and letting everything on the light squares. Because I have a dark squared bishop, I want to have a room for my bishop to do something. f5, blocking everything. Probably that wasn't really good, because I will just take en passant and I will open up the position. Knight versus bishop favors me, the one who owns the bishop. Rook d7, king h2, king f7, rook g1. Here, this is the critical moment I was focused on. In this position, rook to g8, white could have finished the game in 14 moves, but he instead took the rook on g8. He should have simply opted for bishop takes on f6. I will simply bishop takes. You can't just stick with your king because the rook is, lost. So bishop takes on f6, rook takes, f takes on g3, king takes, and king to h3. And this position is clearly amazing for white. You have this pawn weakness, you have this pawn weakness. This is a backward pawn, and at the the simple plan here is penetrates on the b8 square, and at some points attack the h5 pawn by a maneuver of king to h3 and king takes on h5. This was simple plan. Black lacks the initiative, lacks counterplay, lacks active plans. He doesn't have anything. But white, I don't know why he was thinking of. He just played rook takes on g8, knight takes, and he allowed him some counterplay in the latter phase of the endgame. If you simply exchange this knight versus this bishop, the final position with rook endgame is simply won for you. You're gonna win the endgame with clear path, even if you're not even thinking. You're gonna play intuitively. With your intuition, you're gonna win the endgame. Okay, now you played rook b8. If you exchange the knights with that bishop, rook b8 could have been really amazing. Okay, so knight to h6, rook to c8, knight to f5, bishop to g3. I would say bishop to g3 was much better. Bishop to g3 was much better. King to h3, rook to b7. Now you allow him the counterplay. This was the big issue for white. Now the rook on b7, gonna go to b2, gonna attack the f2 pawn and the a2 pawn. If you had only the rook in game, with the pawn up, with these weaknesses, the position gonna be very good for you. But you decided to leave him with that knight on f5 to make you some crazy stuff with this bishop on h4. That wasn't good. Strategically speaking, the game should have been ended in 40 to 45 moves strategically, but now we want to play tactically, even with the pawn down. So the black pieces now gains momentum, gains activity, and wants to do something about these two pawns. So black have something to play for, at least a draw. Rook takes on c6, rook... Okay, small tactic, rook b1, he wants to play rook to h1, check, king g2, and rook takes on h4. So obviously white should be aware here, and he plays an intermediate move, rook c7, king g6, and bishop to g3. h4, you're placing a pawn on the dark squares, and I have a bishop of the dark squares. On the longer term, my rook, my bishop, and my king will attack this pawn. So many weaknesses here to attack. So strategically speaking, white is doing just fine, even after this sequence of moves. Bishop e5, rook to b2, rook a takes on a7, rook takes on f2. This was a blunder. This was a huge blunder. So now, because you allowed him to make some counterplay, allowed him to remain active with his pieces, you should pay. Now, because you played rook a6, this is a complete blunder. Why allowed him, king to g5 and going for some nasty stuff? Push c6, you already have a protected passed pawn. c6, c7, c8, and he have to sacrifice his knight to give you that pawn, to take that pawn. Knight simply is misplaced in this position to capture the pawn on c6. So on this variation c6, he doesn't have anything else. I mean, he will take on f2 with check, and then king to g2. h3, he can't. He will take the rook on f3. So c6 was the only move in this position to remain with a small advantage, or 2.5 advantage, slight advantage. Rook a6, you wanted to capture, you wanted to be greedy, you should pay. King to g5, this position is equal. Rook takes, rook check, rook takes, rook e8, rook c2, king h3, rook c3. He wanted to gain time because at this position he had 1 minute 35 seconds and white had 3 minutes 28 seconds. Check, 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 check. And now psychologically you think this is an excellent move, and it is a good move. Because psychologically you don't have time, psychologically you are playing a rapid game, and psychologically you're gonna pursue the dream of equality and even the dream of winning the game. A combo of knight plus rook is much better than a combo of bishop plus rook, especially in this position where you have the king very, very scared. King d1, h3, he wanted to do something. f4, f5, knight takes, king d2, rook to c4. Take this pawn, but at the same time, I must do something with the rook because it remains passive. It is passive. King to d3, king to g4, a3. This is another blunder, by the way, because now you allowed me to push c6, and if you go back to c4, I will push c5. I'll push c7. Rook to a4, c6, take, king to d2, h2. Why not playing c7? Why not playing c7? Why? Why? Because it's a blunder. Okay, so rook on g8 check. That was the only move. Rook to g8, king to f3, and then probably at the same time protecting the promotion square by rook to h8. And then push the c7 pawn, c6, c7, and c8. And at least you will win his knight or his rook, and at least he will simply consider taking the pawn with his knight, because the pawn is very, very close to promotion. He will be a queen, and you can't actually do anything about that position. Okay, so the second blunder by the white pieces. Black played knight to h4. He was thinking that he blocked, the route for the rook on h8 to block the h2 pawn. But simply I will take with my bishop. c7. You promote, I promote with check. c7. You promote, I promote with check. Well, he only had 25 seconds. It's very hard to see all of these possibilities. Bishop takes h2 was good to promote the pawn, and at the same time, king c2, knight takes, king b2, rook b3, king a2, c7. Even if you take now the knight, if you take the bishop, I'll simply promote. But he have a nice tactic here. He had a nice tactic. He simply, if you promote, I will take with my rook. I will show this variation. For example, if you promote, I will take, you will take, and I will take the knight, and you have to simply give your rook for this pawn, and it will be a draw, obviously. But he saw that tactic, and he opted for first protecting the bishop that does the job of protecting the c7 pawn, and then going for something. When black saw this position, he simply resigned. There is nothing else to do. You protected the bishop that was under attack, and the c8 pawn is simply, or the c8 square is simply a promising land that I'm gonna promote my pawn to, and I'm gonna have another queen that I had already, but I have another new queen. Now, let's see where everyone made a huge mistake, or the imprecisions first. For Yasser Haj Kholti, let's start with him, with the imprecisions. This was, as we say, this was an imprecision. Putting a pawn on the dark squares and simply making me rearrange my pieces to much better squares. Where's the other inaccuracy? g4, attacking with no piece to support the attack, to support the pawn push. The other inaccuracy, knight g3, although here he told you, the chess engine, he told us, he'll tell you, he will tell us, he'll tell us, he'll tell us, he'll tell us, push h3. Knight g3, king d1. Here probably king to d2 was better, because now some crazy stuff could happen with your king on the back rank. Just pay attention when you play a classical game, that this is not a classical game. It is just blitz and rapid game. So subconsciously, these players are playing by, I would say, their subconscious programs, their intuition. They don't play strategical game here. They play based on their tactics, based on their intuition. If they played strategically, the game could have ended in, as I said earlier, in 40-45 moves. But they played based on tactics, based on based on fancy tricks, fancy dreams, and the game simply lasted longer than expected. So they are known for their tactical vision, known for their tactical abilities, but not that much for the strategical aspects or strategical, understanding. As I said, so many inaccuracies, but in the overall, their subconscious program, their intuition played a great game, a good game, in a rapid blitz portion. If it was a classic, they should have used strategical aspects, but they are good players, and they played a good game, resulted in Yasser sentissi winning the game with the white pieces. He's now in the top of the board with probably 4 points out of 4. Today they're gonna play the 5th game or the 6th game. I don't know really exactly where I left them, where I left the countdown, but this was a good game. This was a good game, resulting in so many ways, so many possibilities, so many options available for both players. And alhamdulillah, we finished this session with this good game, amazing game, decent game. Decent game. And I hope that I will see them both in other rounds, in other games. Winning or losing doesn't matter. The important is to learn. The important factor in all these tournaments is to simply know that you have some weaknesses to solve and to fix. And after all, we are all players. So, that was a good game. Goodbye. Mamma me me me